Let's discuss 10 chilling factors in ice dilution for your cocktails.
Brought to you by AwesomeDrinks.com. Check out learn.awesomedrinks.com to learn more about cocktails.
Welcome to Comment Cocktails. I'm Derek, and this series is designed to kickstart your way into home craft cocktail making, becoming your own home bartender. Maybe, if you want to, someday become a real bartender, making real money, so that you can send some tips over to me. Or you can always go to patreon.com/CMC and help support Comment Cocktails through donations. I mean, after all, this is free content. In any case, you should totally subscribe to the show and make sure you clicky on that like button. So cocktail dilution is an extremely important element to all good cocktails. So you can either add water to your cocktail, or you can dilute it down a little bit. Or as Dave Arnold once said, I think he said it in a couple websites and in his book Liquid Intelligence, Amazon affiliate link below if you'd like to know more about liquid intelligence. There is no chilling without dilution. There is no dilution without chilling. The only way to pair ice in a cocktail and make that cocktail colder via shaking, stirring, or just sitting in a drink is through dilution. It doesn't just magically get cold on its own. So our first chilling factor when it comes to dilution is cocktail dilution through shaking. This is the fastest and most aggressive way to make your cocktail get down to that temperature it deserves. Most cocktails that utilize juice are shaken, not stirred. Not always, but usually. And don't listen to James Bond and his fictional world that doesn't really exist. Spirit-only cocktails are stirred. And if you don't like them that way, then shake them. I don't really care. Make a drink that you enjoy. You should always shake your cocktail for 10 to 15 seconds. That shaking action also creates micro bubbles that change the flavor profile and kind of how it sits on your tongue. It just feels a little bit more airy, a little bit more light and refreshing. But overall, the shaking is really there to chill the drink and get it to the proper dilution ratio. Number 2, cocktail dilution through stirring. Spirit-only cocktails are stirred. At least that's considered the proper technique. It's really because there are no bubbles at play, so you're going to get a drink that's crystal clear if it has all crystal clear ingredients. And it tastes different on your tongue, almost like a silky sheet, except I wouldn't eat silky sheets. That's just weird. This is really the non-aggressive way of diluting your cocktail, which means it's going to be a little bit more time consuming. But by removing the shake, that aggressive nature and creating those bubbles can kill off more delicate flavors. If your base flavor is gin, not a juice or a citrus or acidity or anything like that, but gin, by shaking your gin martini, for instance, you're blowing off all your top notes and your heart notes. There are a lot of those really delicious flavors that are lost when you start to shake things aggressively. What you end up with is a whole lot of base note. The base note is your alcohol, your bitter agents, your roots, your herbs, maybe some of the deeper notes of a juniper. And shaking off a lot of those tops and heart notes, the non-scientific version, layman's terms, and at least in the case of gin, is often called bruising the gin. You can't bruise gin. Here's a video that covers it in more detail. When you're stirring a cocktail, consider how long it will really take you to stir that cocktail to the proper dilution. It's 2 minutes. That 2-minute stir is going to create about the same ratio of water dilution as a 15-second shake, which might be why some people prefer to shake cocktails that should be stirred. Gets you there faster. Third factor is cocktail dilution through water. Just water. This technique isn't used very much anymore. You'll see it in such drinks as the Old Fashioned that calls for water. That might be club soda, that could be sparkling water, but it's still just water. To get your drink down in the chill factor, you probably want to use very cold water or very cold club soda. And then there's that water that just kind of sneaks its way in there. You're making a honey syrup, which is typically honey and water. You're making a simple syrup, which is sugar and water. The water's still getting in there, you just might not always know about it. The fourth factor is the dilution ratio. This is something you should always consider. If you shake or you strain for the proper amount of time, 15 to 25% of your cocktail is going to be water. Seems high, right? Well, first off, that water brought the chill. So you're getting the flavor and you're getting the cold, crisp, refreshing nature of your cocktail through that water. But the molecules that make up alcohol are kind of ripped apart a little bit when you bring the water in there, which allows some of the aroma to get out. Once the aroma escapes, it comes out of your drink and up through the glass. It makes it to your nose. And since a high degree of your flavor tasting experiences are actually through aroma, appropriate amounts of water to create appropriate amounts of aroma make for a tastier drink. It's weird, but it's science. You can't argue with science. You can, you just always lose. Fifth chilling factor. Does fresh ice versus used ice. Unless your recipe calls to dump or pour the contents of your shaker directly into your glass, you will typically strain your drink over fresh ice. The ice you've already shaken with is kind of half gone. Let's say you've added 20% water to your drink. Well, that means your ice is a lot smaller than it started. Doesn't that mean you're adding additional ice, so you're going to get a lot more dilution because that ice that you just put in is fresh? Potentially, depending on how long it takes you to finish a drink. But considering you're taking a drink that is now at the temperature of your ice, or close, and putting it on fresh ice, the dilution of the fresh ice is going to be much less than what you started with because you had lukewarm ingredients, or at least room temperature, like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Your sixth chilling factor? Don't sweat your ice. In most cases. If you're doing this at home, like we do on the show, I typically put a certain amount into an ice bucket and I work out of this. But as you do that over and over, the ice that's in there starts to get a sweat on it, a little bit of a wet rinse around the ice. It's diluting because it's touching the air, and the air is transferring energy, and it's melting slowly and creating a little pool of water in your vessel. The problem is when you go and scoop that ice and you throw it in your cocktail, what you're not accounting for is all that water that's sitting on the front of the ice that you're now putting in your drink. There is no chill without dilution. The ice is already diluted. It is not going to create a chilling effect to your cocktail. All it's going to be doing is adding additional water to dilute it, which you didn't need. You need your water dilution through chill. So if you're using ice tongs, what I suggest you do is grab your ice, give it a little snap to blow all that water off before you put it in your shaker or into your glass. If you have your ice in here and it's frozen, when you take it out of the freezer, it's nearly impossible to get out. You're going to be pushing these things, your hands are going to be just so cold they're going to hurt, and you're just going to be like, when is this done? So the way you fix it is you toss that on the table and you let it get to that level where it's tempering, where it starts to sweat and there's a little sheen of ice. Then you can shake it off and they pop right out because they've now lost that lock that they have on the silicone. If you're working with large blocks of clear ice, you do also want that to sweat. And that's really because clear ice looks really sexy when it's put into a drink. If you're cutting your own clear ice, I have a clear ice video up here. If you're making your own clear ice blocks, if you take that straight out of the freezer, you're going to see it fogs up nearly instantaneously as the water just comes out of the air and it freezes right to it. If you take that and you throw it right into your glass, it's going to crack. That's called differential expansion. Science again. What happens when your ice cracks is because you didn't let it sweat, so the ice itself is at a very cold temperature. The drink isn't as cold as that. You put the ice in there, the ice expands because it's still at the super cold temperature. The outside expands, it needs to break apart from the center to be able to expand, so crack, it breaks. Now, when you're sweating your clear ice, again, shake it before you put it in your drink so you don't get the melt water in your cocktail. Speaking of clear ice, number 7, clear ice melts slower. Yeah, weird. And the reason that is when you're creating clear ice using directional freezing, where you're freezing in one direction down, is pushing all of the minerals and the elements down further and further, and all the air is getting pushed down. If you have that white ice, all those air pockets, that's just air. You can't melt air. So, if you have 20% air or 10% air in your ice cube, you're going to get faster dilution because you're not diluting all water. In any case, I suggest you make some clear ice because it's fun to play with and it makes your cocktails look awesome. Number 8, frozen and chilled spirits. I know. People put their Jägermeister and their vodka in the freezer and they're like, this stuff's awesome this way. The reason that's done is because chilled spirits, chilled liqueurs, are not going to be as astringent and potent on the tongue because cold substances numb your tongue and numb your senses, so you're not tasting the full experience, so it tastes smoother. The problem is, your dilution is going to be impacted if you use those ingredients to make a cocktail. Shake it or stir it, either case, that 15 to 25% dilution is going to be way off. And the reason is, your ice isn't going to dilute at the same speed because the products that you're using are already as cold as ice, or pretty darn close. Number 9, large ice cubes. They're really cool. They're sexy. You make a big whiskey sour in a double old-fashioned glass, you stick a big cube in there, you're a rock star. Or you take that lowball glass, you put like 2 fingers worth of whiskey in it, like about that much whiskey, into your glass, and you throw a big sphere ice cube, and you're like, this is awesome, look at this, it looks so sexy. The problem is, you just over-diluted your drink. If the ice rises above the liquid line, all of that ice that's above the liquid line is chilling the air all around your drink, which creates excess water, which runs off into your beverage, but your beverage didn't get colder for it. All it did was make your beverage more watery. I think the final factor is the best, most interesting, and most relevant to the conversation about ice. High surface area ice melts faster. The more surface area you have exposed to warm temperatures, be that liquid or air, it's going to create more dilution. One thing you might not notice, but is a fact, is that square ice and sphere ice are not the same surface area. Tovolo makes both a large cube, these aren't even the biggest, a large cube and a large sphere. The cube has more surface area than the sphere. So the sphere actually lasts longer in a beverage if it's fully covered. Or if you take these, crack them a couple times, and split them in half, even more surface area, which means they will dilute faster. Crushed ice is just a big fat cube broken up into really, really small fragments. And they dilute really fast. So what has the highest surface area and fastest dilution? A blended drink. Blended drinks often have like 8 ounces of water added to whatever size drink recipe you're making. Sure, it's going to be a slushy, but in all actuality, it's mainly water. Which is why you may note that a lot of really cool and great blended drinks have a very high percentage of alcohol. It helps offset that dilution. So choosing the right ice style for your beverage will have a lot to do with the ABV of the overall beverage. Next time, we're going to talk about flavor pairings. That way you can make educational decisions on what type of cocktail designs you enjoy and what type of cocktail designs you would enjoy making. So to start your journey as a home craft bartender, click the linky below. That'll go to awesomedrinks.com where you can get the home bartender starter kit. And to continue your journey into cocktail making, check out one of those videos in the sidebar, course 1 and 2, either understanding how to use your bar tools or understanding the cocktail. You know, the stuff you're watching right now. We're teaching you how to drink.